In particular, the Buddha was concerned about two things: the causes of suffering and the causes of freedom. And these teachings have come down to us as what's known in English, at least, as the Four Noble Truths. Now, I don't know how you think about it in other languages besides English, but the Four Noble Truths is not a faithful translation of the original Sanskrit. The original Sanskrit is something like the Four Truths for Noble Ones, or the Four Ennobling Truths. And the reason I mention this is it again connects up with the importance of cause and effect. The Four Truths, which describe suffering and its cause or causes, and freedom from suffering and its causes. If we understood those completely, why would we ever choose causes of suffering instead of causes of freedom? But because we don't understand them clearly, we end up choosing causes of suffering. That's kind of the basis of this whole tradition. The ones who have clearly understood what the causes of suffering and the causes of freedom are the noble ones, the noble arhats and bodhisattvas and Buddhas. They've actually understood what causes suffering, what causes freedom, and reasonably enough, they choose the causes of freedom. So that's why I mention this issue of what we call the Four Truths. Again, we're going to talk today about the first truth, the truth of suffering, or the truth of dukkha, as in the original Sanskrit. I'm afraid that it might feel a little bleak to go on and on about dukkha. We'd probably much rather hear about liberation, freedom, enlightenment, and so on. But the importance of starting with the teachings on dukkha, on suffering, is that unless we face our experience squarely, we have no working basis. We have nowhere to begin. We have no way of treading on the path. So I mentioned last time that the translation of dukkha as suffering may give you the wrong sense, may give you a sense that we're talking about some terrible, dramatic, horrible thing. And of course, that is not what the Buddha was talking about. Yes, there are such things, but there are also much subtler experiences that are dukkha. Dukkha basically is about dissatisfaction or bad fit or something more like that, something more pervasive, that ranges from the most dramatic, painful feelings to the most subtle. So one way to think about this is in terms of the 8 types of dukkha that you, I hope, read about in the readings for today's class. So these 8 types can be summarized in three types. What Trungpa Rinpoche called inherited suffering, suffering of the period between birth and death, and general misery. Another way that this is talked about is the suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and all pervasive suffering. So the inherited suffering, or the suffering of suffering, is the suffering connected with birth, old age, sickness, and death, the facts of life. The Buddha didn't mention taxes, but maybe we need to add that as a 5th category. So birth, we don't generally remember our births. I certainly don't. Old age, that might be something in the future for some of you. For people like me, it's in the present. Sickness, death, these are facts of life, and they are connected with suffering. Each of them is painful, and each of them brings about lots of dukkha. The suffering of change involves getting what you don't want, not getting what you do want, and not being able to keep what you have. So we put a lot of energy in our lives into getting what we want, avoiding what we don't want, and holding on to what we have. We buy insurance, we take our meds and our vitamins and our nutraceuticals, we strive at work, and so on. All of these are connected with the hope of getting what we want, avoiding what we don't want, and holding on to what we have. And they're connected with the fear of not getting what we want, getting what we don't want, and not keeping what we have. The last category, all-pervasive suffering, or general misery, as Trungpa Rinpoche described it, is perhaps the most interesting. It's somewhat subtle, but I think anyone who's done a little bit of meditation can get a feeling for it. This all-pervasive suffering is also known as the suffering of conditioned existence. Conditioned existence means that we're continually experiencing causes that drive us into the next moment, that we never are really able to rest. We never find more than a moment's peace. You can imagine you're looking at a beautiful sunset, and for a moment, it's just a delight. And then in the next moment, you start thinking about, oh, this is really nice. I love this. I'd like to hold on to this. Where are we going for dinner? Do we have anything in the house? And so on and so forth. Or you're at a nice meal, you take a bite, it's delicious, and then mind takes off into the next moment, and you're thinking about what comes next. What should I order for dessert? And you lose track of actually tasting the food. It's very interesting. When you have a good meal, at least in my experience, I'll notice 2 or 3 bites, and then I'll be off elsewhere. So this suffering of conditioned existence is the suffering that comes from being compelled, constantly being compelled, the sense that we are constantly driven to the next thing, that we don't get a moment to just rest, just relax. So you probably noticed even in our 5 minutes of sitting meditation together, that maybe you had a moment of relaxation, but probably things started arising and you started struggling with them, and it was very hard to feel real peace. If it weren't for this suffering of conditioned existence, we'd be able to really rest and find peace. The last thing I wanted to talk about today was the difference between pain and dukkha. So obviously dukkha is pain, is painful. But it's helpful to be really clear about what we mean by dukkha. In one of the sutras, the Buddha is talking to his students, and he asks them, what's the difference between an ordinary person being shot with an arrow and a noble being, a realized person, being shot with an arrow? He explains that the difference is when the ordinary person is shot by an arrow, in the next moment, they shoot themselves with a second arrow. Some pain is unavoidable and inevitable. We will definitely experience painful circumstances. But that second arrow is the emotional and psychological suffering that we create for ourselves in the face of that first moment. If we think about the suffering of suffering, it's probably pretty easy to understand. When you get sick, for example, there's the discomfort of the illness, but there's also all the worrying, the complaining, the concern, the hope that you'll get better quickly, the fear that it'll get worse. Even a cold or a minor illness brings up all these further elements of dukkha, of, oh my, or to use the Yiddish, which I'm familiar with, oy vey. So there's the basic dukkha, there's the basic pain, and then there's the dukkha that comes on top of that. So the Buddha, when he talks about the causes of dukkha and the causes of freedom, is not talking about you'll never experience any more pain. But the freedom is the freedom from the second arrow, the dukkha, the suffering that comes about psychologically based on our hopes and our fears. Everyone looks very serious, at least those of you I can see on my home screen, as though I've been telling you this really dreadful news that you've never heard before. Well, take heart. We will eventually get to freedom from suffering and the path, the causes of the freedom of suffering. But we really need to begin from where we are. We need to acknowledge the painful qualities of our experience and how we react to them in order to move past that. So I think we could go to our breakout groups now. And what I'd like you to do after there, I should tell you that there will be a moderator for each of the groups that have been chosen based on their experience. They will introduce themselves. They'll ask you to introduce yourselves to each other. And then I'd like you to discuss the difference between pain and dukkha, the part that I've just been describing. And then please feel free to bring up whatever other issues or questions you have about the four truths for noble ones. Okay, so now we can go to our breakout room groups. Those will be for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and have a general discussion.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. Just to let you know that we're going to have some language-specific rooms this time. We're going to have, if I'm not mistaken, 5 Chinese groups. One is Spanish, one French, one Portuguese, and one Russian group. So if you'd like to go to the language-specific groups, after you are assigned to a breakout room, you can just switch. You can just change to the language that you'd like to go.
How did they do that?
They go to the breakout rooms on bottom panel of the Zoom, and they would see the rooms, and there is a number of the room, and next to the number is the language. And for those Chinese participants who experience difficulties in joining the breakout rooms, you can just stay in the main room. So I think Malan will help you to facilitate this group as well. Yeah, and I just wanted everyone to note that it's a lot of participants. So I tried to assign the facilitators manually, but if there is like no facilitator in your room, or there are two facilitators in one room, please feel free to just go to another room. There could be a little bit of bumps, so please bear with us, as it's been a little bit of a challenge. And Minette, did you have a question?
So maybe I can just say one thing at this point before Minetta, which is that you will automatically go to one breakout room, and if you want to go to a different one, you need to leave the room that you've been automatically assigned to.
Yeah, well, when you choose another room, you will leave the room. You will leave the room you're now. Wait a second, I will just unmute your Minette so you can ask your questions. 1 second. Unmute. Yeah, now you can unmute yourself.
Hello, hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to request Andy to quickly review the questions for the breakout rooms. All right.
Yes, so after you've introduced yourselves to each other, I would like you first to discuss the difference between pain and dukkha, pain and the suffering that we talk about in the Truths for Noble Ones. And then you can bring up any other questions or issues about the Four Truths for Noble Ones that you'd like to discuss. So we have time for a general discussion, and I would ask you to use the raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you have a question or a comment you'd like to make. And hopefully we can have questions and comments related to the Four Truths for Noble Ones and the material we've been discussing and reading. So please, Gazala.
Yes. Hello, Andy, and hello, everybody. Thank you so much for these incredible Saturdays that have become just so incredible because of these Datun sessions. Thank you very much. My question was about death, as in more in terms of a grief survivor, somebody who has experienced death secondhand, vicariously through the passing of a loved one. So just to be kind of technical about this, where would we put this dukkha suffering? Would we put it in the suffering of suffering, or is it in the suffering of change? Because it is something that has happened that one doesn't want, or come across something that one doesn't want. So that's the question.
Good question. I guess I would put it in the suffering of change, because it's losing something you felt you had. So it's the loss, the sense of losing something important to you, that is the basis of the suffering. And I guess I want to be really clear about one thing that we had a lot of discussion of in my breakout room, which was that we do feel pain when we lose someone. We do feel pain when we see the example that came up in our discussion group was the woman who was murdered in Minneapolis this week. And the experience of learning about that was painful. And we had a long discussion of what is the first arrow and what is the second arrow. And so the pain of loss or the pain of seeing someone else harmed, I think that's the first arrow. And then how we deal with that is how we work with dukkha. So good question. That helps, I think, clarify these issues. Because the suffering of suffering is when you yourself are dying.
Right. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre?
G'day, Andy. As you know, I'm new to studying Dharma, so in the reading, there was a paragraph I couldn't understand, or a sentence. It says, suffering is regarded as the result of samsara and the origin of suffering as the cause of samsara.
I'll quickly try to address that. We've been talking a little bit about cause and effect. And so this is in line with that discussion that we've been talking a lot about the suffering that is a result. Samsara is itself a result. And the cause of suffering is, we'll get to, I think, next week. We haven't gotten to that yet, but the cause of suffering is generally craving and attachment. That's just a quick explanation. So we have our craving, we have our attachment, and that produces suffering. So we have the cause and the effect. Does that help?
Not really, but
Okay.
I will wait till next week
No,
of the week.
read it again. I think I may have missed the point.
It's kind of like a chicken or egg question. That's what it seems like for me, because I can't get my head around it. Suffering is regarded as the result of samsara and the origin of suffering as the cause of samsara.
Yeah, we have samsara. We have suffering. Why do we have it? Because there's a cause. That's what it's pointing to.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to it.
Okay.
Actually, sansar can also be considered to be the cosmic play of the Lord. And secondly, when we say that suffering, what the past karmas we have made, we are here in this sansar. And when we are here, we are again making some new causes for the effects to come later on. So, it's a sort of I'm not sure if I should call it a vicious cycle, but yes, it's cause and effect in movement, we are in sansar and we are creating causes. Then we are creating causes, we are creating our own sansar. Then the effects come out. Sometimes sansar shows those effects. You see, our existence becomes that effect of our causes that we made in past. So yeah, it all goes hand in hand.
Thank you.
Is
Fiona.
it the involuntary birth in samsara which is the main cause of suffering?
So I think we're going to try to stick with the people who have raised their hands and do it in order. Otherwise, it's hard to manage on Zoom. So, Iona?
Yeah, hi. We've been discussing in our group whether pain is just physical, it's just pain, when you think about getting shot by an arrow. No? So whether pain is just physical, or pain is also a psychological and mental pain you can suffer from. So there was a little discussion about this, and I think it's very important. Maybe Andy, you can clear this up a little so that we get more secure about this kind of thing.
That's a great question. Pain is not just physical. Obviously, we have all sorts of experiences. Some we consider to be physical, some we consider to be psychological. Fundamentally, any experience is experienced by the mind. So even physical pain is experienced in the mind. So all pain is experienced in the mind. You're muted, Yana.
I'm not. Oh, now I'm in again. Thank you. Yeah, and then we've been talking about an enlightened person, an enlightened one. How he or she are transcending the pain, so that then there is no dukkha for them, or how would you say this?
There is no dukkha for them,
Okay.
but there is pain. Now, they would experience pain perhaps differently than we do.
Okay, thank you for clearing this up for all of our group members. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes, Shibashashi.
Thank you once again. But today's question is that the Four Noble Truths, thinking intellectually first, if someone understands and experiences the Noble Truth one, there will be no need for the rest of the Noble Truths, right, sir?
Sorry, if you understand the first truth, you don't need the others?
Yes, if one can actually okay.
No, because that there is dukkha. If you understand that, that's good, but you need to understand what caused it, and you need to understand what causes to cultivate to find liberation from dukkha. So all four truths work together. You have dukkha and its causes. You have liberation and its causes.
I was thinking, like, what if, like, suffering is inevitable? That's the one. If someone accepts that part, I think that person has already, it could be my wrong judgment and thinking. So that person has already accepted everything it is there and maybe aware of everything it is there.
Well, if you say suffering is inevitable, you are not going to cultivate the causes of freedom.
Yeah.
Yes, pain is inevitable, but dukkha is not inevitable. The Buddha's message is that dukkha is unnecessary, but we are cultivating it. So let's cultivate freedom from dukkha. And the process of freedom, cultivating that freedom, is an intensive effort.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right.
Second, yeah. So when you say noble truths, are these truths only true for noble beings? And if they are true only for noble beings, then how does our ordinary person like myself realize these truths?
So the truths are true for everyone. They are the realities. The noble ones actually have realized the truth. They have understood what the causes of dukkha and the causes of freedom are. And as a result, they cultivate freedom. We have not realized, I'll speak for myself, I haven't realized clearly the causes of dukkha and the causes of liberation. Otherwise, I wouldn't still experience dukkha. Okay? Julia.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm unmuted, right? Am I unmuted? It's so great to be here. Very, very grateful for being able to participate in this. And I guess I know this isn't the main point, but there was a bit in the reading that really struck me. That description of all the suffering involved as a background in the tea, the tea and the Tsampa passage. It's overwhelming to consider. So I guess I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do with that exactly. I mean, maybe. I mean, does it mean, no tea? I mean, you don't want to step in the world in, eating and all of it with that consciousness. So it seems to leave a choice of either having almost unbearable recognition of the suffering of what's going on or the pain of what's going on the one hand, or just being in blissful ignorance, like just blotting it all out. So I just wondered what you do in your mind with that sort of recognition.
So just so that people know what we're talking about, this is the optional reading from Words of My Perfect Teacher by Patrul Rinpoche, in which he describes all of the pain and suffering that happens in the world through ordinary activities that seem kind of harmless. And the message Patrul Rinpoche gives us in that section is that you have to realize that you cannot escape death. You cannot escape causing death. So if you want to become a vegetarian to avoid killing and you eat rice, the process of growing rice involves a lot of killing. So it's basically the message is don't be naive. And of course, we're not going to bear in mind all the lives of the creatures that are killed when we are having our cup of tea. That would be kind of extreme. That would be kind of hallucinatory. More important to actually taste the tea. But also not to be naive. Okay.
Thank you.
Alice?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Andy, for showing up for us. And yeah, it's my brain is not waking up. I'm looking at some of the words on the page Trungpa Rinpoche wrote at the moment. And one of the things that, even though I have read and heard so much about this, it struck me again that what he's talking about is to be you know, like instead of sitting on the wing of an airplane, you're going to be much more comfortable if you get inside, you know, and probably stay alive. And in every line, he's teaching about being engaged in whatever it is how I see that. And then in the discussion around suffering, well, birth is suffering, I think, because, you know, as he points it out in his book, you know, the baby comes in and we all know, you know, the baby's, you know, got to learn how to breathe, etc. And, you know, so it's all, you know, samsara, as we learn in Dharma, is endless, and it's and I think part of it is comes from just being fully engaged. And I can give a couple examples. I was on a retreat in India for 3.5 months, and I broke my leg, and I had to have it fixed. And I broke it, it shattered, and it was very serious, and I was terrified because here I am in a strange country, and I don't know anything about what's happening, you know, how they do medicine there, and I was really suffering with that fear around, oh my God, you know, is this going to be okay? And at the same time, there was the pain of initially breaking my leg, but as I leaned into the fact that it was broken and something was going to have to be done, I learned how to move so as not to cause further pain. And then you know, once I was really present with the experience, I recognized that I could call some people and I had a voice, and that I could get, you know, the first hospital I went to was not okay. And so I found another place where I could go and get taken care of, and everything turned out better than it could have in the States. And then today, even in our group, someone mentioned shame and the suffering of shame. And I immediately connected to the embarrassment and occasional shame I feel about being an American right now, and the collective karma of that. And then as I accepted that I was feeling this, you know, I just went, okay, this is what's happening, and acknowledge it. As I sat there and paid attention to what people were talking about, and also to the ego that was involved there, you know, oh, this is, you know, oh, how embarrassing, people are going to associate me with, you know, the man I didn't vote for. And
I think I'm going to stop you at
yeah,
this point, Alice. I think those are two good examples. So thank you. Claudia? You need to unmute.
Please go ahead and unmute yourself, Claudia.
Okay, thank you so much, Indy. I would love to share. I'm going to be quick because I have difficult to express myself. But I was doing a note, and and I said that on group, and I would love to hear, Andy, if you have something to add from teachings of Great Master Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche. I will be very grateful. So I just want to share something that I contemplate and I talk in my group. For example, there is a kind of pain of about cleaning everything over and over and over. I'm not going to enter in details, but I think there are two important things that I've been contemplating, and I just want to share because if I can help other people, I would be very grateful. Which is, and I saw in Dharma Lord Gampopa teachings, is about awareness and mindfulness together with contemplate karma. And sometimes when for example, this is a kind of pain, okay? When I'm noticed and I'm aware of my actions, like small things about cleaning that I start to, like I don't want to do that, and I see my mind doing a wrong thing, that little wrong thing is the thing that create a seed of suffering and bring me these cause and conditions, this karma. So I just want to add that because it's been very important to me to contemplate these three things: mindfulness, awareness, and karma. So this is, I think, is also the basis of dukkha, of suffering. So if you, Wendy, could just add something about that, I would be very grateful.
I think
People don't, this is suffering because I'm talking and I have my heart beating like this.
yeah.
It's also kind of suffering. So
Yeah.
but
So my good friend and colleague Adrian, I think, will be talking about the causes of suffering next week. So I'm not going to rain on her parade by jumping in. I think we have time for one or two last questions. I'm sorry we're running up to the end of our time. Hugo?
Okay, well, I'll be quick. Basically, your question, your original question, what's the difference between dukkha and pain? Obviously, pain is part of dukkha, right? And pain is part of having a physical body and a mind, or more physical body, and that's the consequence of past actions. So, as Andre was saying, and being uh, um, samsara is the cause of suffering, and at the same time, suffering is the cause of samsara. And that is the cyclic thing that being in samsara, we are in samsara because of past actions, and we have a body, we have pain, and whatever we do now generates actions, consequences in the future as well. So basically, yeah, pain and it's part of dukkha, right? I mean, dukkha is a bigger, it encompasses many other sufferings, but pain is part of dukkha. So I was a little bit confused when you said we can deal with dukkha, we can become free of dukkha, but not of pain. So I didn't understand what you meant by that.
So dukkha involves pain. Pain does not have to involve dukkha. You can get shot by the first arrow without shooting yourself with the second arrow.
But again, we experience pains because we have a body, a samsaric body, right?
The body, samsara is not a thing.
No, I understand that. That's our perception, right? That's samsara is our perception.
That's right. So whether we have a body or we think we have a body, whether we think that's samsaric or not, there will be pain. Do we need to add the pain of hope and fear to the pain we experience from being embodied? That's the question.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
You can reflect on that. Okay, the last question, we're a little bit over time, but one more question.
There was a question from Christian. Do you still want to ask your question, or we move to the Gale? I guess we move on. Okay.
Hi, thank you, Andy. I wanted to ask you about
pain and dukkha in relation to others, because I was also struck by this example from words of my perfect teacher about the tea and the Zampa. And I thought that there's so much suffering in the world, and how to embrace that multiplicity somehow, because I understand that while feeling pain myself, I cannot catch that other arrow and create more problems. But even me not feeling pain does not make the whole pain of the world disappear. And somehow, if we are empathic, we sense it too. So how do we manage the pain of others?
You can't manage the pain of others. But you can work with your own experience, try to cultivate the causes of freedom from dukkha, which in turn will allow you to be more beneficial to others. So if we sit around thinking about all the beings that are dying when the tea is being grown, and we spend all our time doing that, we're not going to be able to help anyone. But if we cultivate the causes of liberation, meditation, compassion, and so on, wisdom, we'll be able to free ourselves enough to really be of benefit to others. Okay, thank you. So I think we should end at this point. Next week, Adrian is going to be talking about the origin or the cause of suffering, of dukkha, and we'll continue with our merry journey. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to joining in next week.
Thank you, Andy. And thanks everyone who joined. And just a reminder that the reading materials for the next week, as well as the recording for this week, will be shared by email. So it's going to be there. Please be patient. It's going to come. And yeah, we also have the Facebook community. Maybe whoever didn't have a chance to ask their question, you can also discuss there, and we will request maybe Tashi or Andy can take a look on it. No guarantees, but maybe. And join our WhatsApp group. We'll try to make the facilitation process more smooth next time. And yeah, thank you very much. And ask any questions on the email and by WhatsApp. I will let people unmute themselves now. So if you want to say bye, please do.
Thank
But don't,
you.
but don't say
Thank you
anything.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you, Andy.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Aduh,
Bye.
cinta aja.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Merci.
you.
Bon.
Bye.
Au revoir.
До свидания.
Bye.
До свидания.
Et 400 personnes.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you.
До скорых встреч.